Well, we ignore at our peril the weak leadership in America. And we're now seeing the consequences of this around the world. Myanmar, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and I will say something later about France. President Biden addressed a joint session of Congress today. This bloke is without shame. He hailed the COVID-19 vaccines distributed across the United States as a dose of hope. That hope, Mr. Biden, was launched on Trump's watch. Trump ordered millions of vaccines before anyone thought of it. Only last week, Biden was telling the world in a virtual summit on climate change, and note Biden wearing a mask, the only one, but the world's biggest polluter, if carbon dioxide is pollution, is China. They're promising net zero emissions by 2060, 10 years after our commitment to 2050, when our economies will be trashed. China will reign supreme using our cheap coal. So, a week after the virtual climate summit, Biden had no direct condemnation today of China's pollution or military aggression. What he said was, quote, "In my discussion with President Xi, I told him we welcome the competition." What the hell is that about? "We're not looking for conflict," unquote. Well, of course, there will be no conflict. China is playing Biden off a break. Tony Abbott summed it up brilliantly last weekend when he wrote, quote, "There's been the militarisation of the South China Sea, the bullying of neighbours, even India, the trade boycotts against Australia, the abrogation of the One Country, Two Systems Treaty on Hong Kong, the mass internment of the Uyghurs, and most dangerous for the wider world, the growing belligerence towards Taiwan, a liberal democracy of 25 million people that should not have to submit just because it was part of China more than 100 years and 2 world wars ago," unquote. And of course, China is militarising ports across our region. It's invaded Taiwan's airspace. What did the leader of the free world have to say in his first address about any of that today? Nothing. And no mention of Israel, with reports in the last 48 hours that former Secretary of State John Kerry, now Biden's climate change czar, dished details of covert Israeli actions to the Iranians. And you mean to say this bloke Biden isn't cognitively delinquent? Have a listen to this, the President of the United States of America.
We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better. With regard to Russia, I know it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek escalation.
Putting Biden in this position of leading the world's democracies is elder abuse. His incoherence is not new, but it surely can't go on. There will have to be a presidential resignation shortly. Listen to this from only a couple of weeks ago.
The only way to spare more pain and more loss, the only way, these millstones no longer mark our national mourning. These milestones, I should say, no longer mark our national mourning.
God help me. And then this.
I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
This is the leader of the free world. How can we believe any self-respecting world leader will take this bloke seriously? Can you imagine what it's like talking to him live? One wag had it right with a meme that was posted on social media that says it all. "Hey, Sleepy Joe, I think it'd be less confusing if you just turned the teleprompter around and let us read it for ourselves." Look, it's easy to laugh. This is very, very serious. For example, today, the plight of migrants, the burden they have placed on US resources, which Trump was addressing, not a word. Not a word. But Biden waxed lyrical about the virtue of raising taxes. All these left-wing clots in the Democratic Party don't understand that if you raise taxes on corporations, then those corporations will move offshore and take American jobs with them. All this before we get to the wider issues of foreign policy. As the Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said this week of Biden, and I quote, "He's been a disaster on foreign policy. The border is in chaos. The Iranians are off the map. He's opening up negotiations with the Iranian regime and they haven't done a damn thing to change. Afghanistan's going to fall apart. Russia and China are already pushing him around, unquote. Well, someone of significant note is going to have to tap this bloke on the shoulder and tell him he's got to go. The tragedy is the replacement is Kamala Harris. As big a disaster. Her own party didn't want her in the runoff for the Democratic nomination. She received 2% of the vote. If we don't think the free world is in a mess, we are bad students of the current international situation.